What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Opening Line. We are back to talk some golf today. It's been kind of a whirlwind the last couple of weeks on the golf scene. So we're back here with Frank and talk a little bit about I'm still calling it Mayakoba Championship. I'm not calling it Worldwide Technology Championship Mayakoba. It's way too long.
Yeah, throughout the thing, I have it switching back and forth here on the banners between whatever the hell they're calling Worldwide Technology and Mayakoba. I think Mayakoba comes off the tongue a little bit better. I agree with you. Been a good few weeks, though, with you. We haven't been together here for, like 2 weeks now. You hit Hideki, and did you have a good week last week? I took last week off. It was kind of a just horrendous field for any sort of data-driven approach for me.
Yeah, last week was frustrating end to the week because I had Patrick Reeves outright, which he ended up finishing second. So far in the fall season, which started like middle of September, last like 7 weeks, we have 2 wins and 3 second place finishes and a domination of the Ryder Cup. So it's been really good. It could have been absolutely amazing. So we've been up a ton of units so far the last 2 months. Hopefully keep it going and get another guy in contention here come Sunday at Mayakoba.
Yeah, and you've got a bunch of plays out there this week. I was relieved because I had so many, and I looked at my sheet and I was like, oh, geez, this is so many plays, and I don't like doing that. Like, golf stuff has been a train wreck. And I was like, well, Paulie did it, so I'm going to add all of these ones I like as well. And luckily, we match on quite a few bets this week.
Yeah, definitely. So let's kind of just talk about the course first before we go into some of the bets here. So Mayakoba is hosted at El Camaleon Golf Club. They've played here for a while. So we got a decent amount of data on it. The only thing is there's really no strokes gain data on here. So you have to just kind of figure it out based upon the course fit and stuff like that, based upon what the scorecard is, how we've seen it play. And we've seen a very similar trend year over year here is distance doesn't really matter as much off the tee here. It's a little bit more accuracy based, and most of the approach shots are coming between 125 and 175. That's because a lot of these shorter par fours are holes where you're kind of forced to lay up because of water or dog legs or the fairway narrows in. So you have a lot of guys hitting to that number between 125 and 175. So really focusing on guys that are good on short irons, whatever it's going to be, gap wedge to maybe 8 iron, 7 iron is going to be key this week. And you also have greens here that are going to be slower than normal. It's past palm greens. Because of how windy it is there, they keep them a little slower. So guys who are good putters doesn't necessarily help as much. Like, sure, you can get hot putting, but we have seen some guys that have not been the best putters do okay here because the variance isn't as bad on these greens. Meaning, like, you can hit bad putts on these greens and still be okay because they're not as fast. So if you hit a putt that's not great on fast greens, it might be 5 feet by. Whereas here it may only go 3 feet by. So you're probably going to 3-putt slightly less.
Yeah, the talent gap really shrinks, right, at slower greens and places like this because they'll all sort of putt well. A lot of wedges and short irons into greens helps as well. There's been a particular style of golfer, and what you said, there's no strokes gain data, so we can't. I don't like making super big claims, but we look at the golfers that have played well here. Guys that are really accurate off the tee, maybe some shorter hitters, and like you said, guys with mid to short irons. Those things sort of go together usually at times. Hovland, Brendan Todd, and Matt Kuchar have won. Now, Hovland does hit the ball a long ways, but he's also extremely accurate, right? Like, he keeps the ball in play. He's one of the better drivers in terms of different distance and accuracy on the PGA Tour. So we have definitely seen this correlation. And if you even look further back, some guys have had 30, 40 rounds played here. And a lot of them are the accurate drivers of the ball, right? They keep the ball in the fairway and then give them kind of maximize birdie looks on slower greens with short irons into greens. In terms of, I know we don't cover chipping that much just because it's not something that really matters much. How many greens, there's going to be a ton of greens hit. I would guess at a course that usually yields a score around 20 under. Do we care about chipping that much? Does the speed of the greens kind of help? Bad chipping as well, guys that are kind of worse on out of bunkers and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so in terms of chipping, it doesn't matter as much. So we typically see the greens regulation right here slightly higher than PGA Tour average. And you also see the up and down rate around the green being slightly higher than average. And what that means when it's the up and down rate's higher, that means the shots are easier. And when the shots are easier, there's less of an edge. Whereas like on a more difficult golf course, less chance for up and down. There's more variation in results of the better players getting up and down and the worst players not. The other thing to note about Mayakoba here, the El Camaleon, is that there's a lot of corollary courses in the PGA Tour where you see similar leaderboards, and it makes sense based upon the skill set. Sony YLI for the Sony Open, you see RSM, you see Corrales, Punta Cana, where that makes sense, right? Because based on when the courses are set up, skill sets needed, or slower greens like for Punta Cana, similar with Paspalum greens. We've seen a lot of similar names pop up at all these places, and it's because of that skill set, something different that what we usually see on a normal week in the PGA Tour, because normally it's just bomb and gouge, make a bunch of birdies, bomb driver, hit wedge. It's not the case this week. You got to manage your game in the wind a little bit too, which is the same thing for all those courses. And that's why we tend to get a lot of value this week, is because it's a non-standard set of skills that is needed to succeed here. Whereas the books just kind of priced it like it would be a normal event. And so that's why we got 1 million bets.
So are we right in thinking then all of my bets pretty much going all the way down the board? Are we right in thinking that longer shots, are more in play at a course like this? I mean, you talked about Sony, right? I think that's a really good correlation there. Tight accuracy is needed, short to mid irons in the greens. And sometimes we get sort of guys that are down the board. Is that the right way of thinking? I know that we each have guys that are pretty much down the board in this.
Yep. And then that's the exact reason the base of it talked about is that it's a different skill set. So the numbers can maybe priced off. And this is what happens at maybe about six, 7 events a year, like Colonial, Harbor Town, kind of similar thing too, where guys that are shorter, accurate guys can contend, and you get a chance. If you get a hot putter, you can win.
Yeah. Okay. Let's jump in here.
All right.
So switch it to Mayakoba for you.
Yeah, there you go. A little easier to say, right? Instead of worldwide technology, which triggers me because they're making worldwide into 2 words. But let's go a little bit back on point here. Let's toss out your first out right here. Who do you got?
Yeah, my first one, we talked about accuracy off the tee, shorter hitters, guys with good mid irons to short iron games, and Chez Reavie sort of fits that for me. I pretty rarely am on the Chez Reavie board here, but when I can adjust for things like course fit, and I like said no strokes gain data, so I do my best here. Reavie gets the biggest boost for me this week, and guys similar to him like Answer get big boost this week. And 100-1, coming off 2 missed cuts, I think we're getting a little bit of a boosted number on him in terms of the outright board and in the T40 market. He's the most accurate driver of the ball on tour over the last 4 or 5 years. And he's had good results here. Not amazing, but pretty good. He did miss the cut last year, but the years prior to that were T26, T26, T14, and T4. And I think this number is just pretty high. This was my biggest edge. I made Reavie right around 50-1 in this event, in this field. And a lot of that given because, the short game isn't great for him, right? The putter hasn't been very good over the last season and even, years before that. But like you said, it's going to shrink the putting skill gap a little bit, and Reavie's going to end up hitting a ton of fairways and getting a ton of birdie looks because he's also an above average approach player as well.
Yep, and Reavie just barely missed my card this week. My first guy this week is going to be a little bit different than what you would think in a field like this, but it's actually
after all this talk,
yes, I'm playing Justin Thomas. This number is just too high. Plus 1,500. He's 1,600 currently at FanDuel. He's been bouncing between 14 to 16 between some offshores and FanDuel. It's a lot lower in some other places, but this is one where if you just look at it holistically, it just doesn't make sense. Justin Thomas has had 15 wins in his last 200 starts on tour. That equates to about 1 every 13 events. So that would be about 12-1 odds, right? And this field strength is a lot less than what we're seeing in terms of like a normal tour depth, right? There's a little bit less players, only 132. Bottom half of the field's really weak. So why are we getting a 15-1 number here for Thomas? That just doesn't make sense. I make the number 11-1 here. It's very rare do I play a favorite in a full field event. It happens in the small field events, not very rarely in this though. And we're talking skill set, right? What is Justin Thomas's worst skill set right now? It's putting.
Putting, yeah.
We're now getting him on greens where it may not matter as much, right? The best part of his game is what? Short iron, right? He's literally the best on tour from 125 to 175.
Very good with wedges. Yes, very good.
His second biggest weakness is driver off the tee. Well, driver gets taken out of his hand on a lot of these holes here where he can lay up with long irons or fairway wood. So all of a sudden it starts getting molded into a really, really good course. Justin Thomas, he's only played here twice. I think he finished 12th last time he played here, but just a really good fit for him. And it's something you wouldn't think would be a good fit for him just based upon, oh, Justin Thomas, why would he be a good fit at Mayakoba? But like looking into this, it's a really, really good fit for Thomas. I think he's going to come in kind of relaxed and not kind of carefree. And a lot of times when the top tier players do that, surprisingly, they actually win.
Yeah, and like you said, the putting. I mean, that's the big thing with him, and that's the skill that he's lost. You look at, you go back to like 2017, 2018, he was gaining about a stroke and a half per event. He's gone down to pretty much just tour average, and this sort of reminds me of your Hideki bet a little bit. If you look at the CJ Cup, he gained 1.14 strokes per round on approach, 0.41 strokes per round off the tee, and 0.61 strokes per round around the green, and lost 2.5, 3 strokes in that event putting. We talked about Hideki 2 weeks ago, and that why you liked him going into that, and it was because, well, he finished pretty high up. Thomas finished T18 in that event and lost 3 strokes putting. You sort of talked about the differences in that, and that sort of reminds me of that bet a little bit. And of course, Hideki went on to win 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and then the other thing about Thomas is this isn't like a narrative or anything, but like second half of the year, end of the year, he has a lot of his victories coming in the last between like the September, October through like January timeframe. And I'm not quite sure why it is, but we've seen him win early in the year in Hawaii a bunch. We've seen him win all those events overseas, around this time of year. And it could just be hey, the season's kind of over, I'm just relaxing and freewheeling and type thing. But I think literally half his wins have been in that time frame. So 15-1, sign me up here, even though people are going to say it's chalky, but
it pays the same.
Yeah, it pays the bills the same way, right? So,
yep. We got another 100-1. I'm going to talk about this. I'll let you jump in as well because we match here. Joel Dahmen, 100-1 doing this event. He won Punta Cana event last year, which was, of course, that you mentioned in the correlation as well. I'm not sure if he plays well at Sony, but this is a pretty good course fit for him. He's slightly below average in terms of driver distance, but he's above average, pretty decently above average in terms of driver accuracy off the tee, which is what we want. I have him ranked 23rd off the tee and 18th on approach this week. That's 12th in terms of ball striking if we add those two things together. Sure, you want more from Dahmen's putter, but that's a risk I'm willing to take at 100-1 that he randomly has a decent to above average putting week for a guy. I think that checks out well in terms of course, in terms of recent play, in terms of field strength. At 100-1, a guy that won just a few months ago at a very similar course. I like Dahmen here. Yeah,
Dahmen at 100-1, something I like too. I thought the number was off by a good amount. I thought it should have been probably closer around 70, something like that for him.
60, yeah.
Especially just because we're talking about the certain course fits. Dahmen plays really good on the short, windy golf courses, and that's exactly what we get here. One of my other outrights is probably going to be a little confusing to some people as well. Is going to be Russell Knox. Not exactly a household name or a guy that everyone is used to playing in the outright market, but he's played this event 8 times. He's finished top 40 each time. He has a second, a third, and a 9th in there. Finished 12th last week, and that was after he had 1 bad round, 3 good rounds. And this is just a skill set for Knox. Is he doesn't hit it long off the tee, but he hits it straight. Very good short iron player, and then just can't putt.
Yeah.
Pretty much exactly what you need to have his golf course here. 100-1 seems pretty high. Should be closer to about 66-1 in this field. So lock me in for Knox at 100-1.
Yeah, it's funny because you just look at these skill sets of the guys that we're mentioning, and they all look almost exactly the same. Like PGA Tour average golfers that hit a ton of fairways and need help putting, right?
Yep, definitely.
All right, let's jump into some finishing positions. No surprise, we match on a handful of these as well. Yeah. I'll let you start with this one. The first one on the board here, we both played Ian Poulter. You got him at 145. You dropped the number down on me, but I still played him at 135. And you said earlier you like him at 135 as well. So tell me about Ian Poulter.
Yeah, early bird gets the worm. So they all the books typically have these up by about the end of Monday Night Football on and so then I literally go through, compare my numbers to the numbers I see out there, and then play them. And I set a notification out of the Discord, say, hey, plays are up. Because what happens when everybody goes and plays them in that short time frame, the numbers are going to move a little bit. That's probably why when you But then this morning it dropped down, whatever, the 10 cents on Poulter. But this is one where just long term over the last year, Poulter's just finished top 40 in so many events, right?
10 out of 12.
10 out of 12. And, sure, that may not be a full reason just to bet it, but if you look at the golf course for him, right? Poulter hits it straight off the tee, not the longest. Very good with his short irons. Doesn't have to do much else. Sure, he's a good putter, but he's a very, grindy player, and especially when he gets windy conditions, and you give him as plus money in a 132 player field. I'm sold.
Yeah, English guy. He obviously is going to be able to play if the wind kicks up. I think that just works to his advantage. One of the you said not the longest hitter. He's one of the shortest hitters on tour. I'll give you that. But he's also one of the most accurate, and that accuracy has really came out, this season and towards the end of last season. He's just kind of let his short game and his really good putting go to work, and he's done really well. Like I said, 10 out of 12 events T40 or better. T18 at the CJ Cup this year, and he missed the cut at the Shriners, but he lost 3 strokes putting, which he's just not really going to do that often. He's one of the better putters, at least over the last season or two on the PGA Tour. So I'm with you here. I got him at 135. You got 145. I think you can play this 125, 120. I think this cash is pretty easy, especially if we just get him to make the cut, maybe get some wind help as well. You have one longer odds here with Brice Garnett. Tell me about him.
Yeah, this is another one. People are like, really, you're playing Brice Garnett? But yeah, sometimes the winning ugly is good too. Garnett's just played really good on seaside golf courses that are windy. And just talking about the corollary courses, plays well at Sony, played well at down there at Punta Cana, and has played amazingly well here. His record's absolutely impeccable. He's pretty much finished top. He's finished 32nd or better his last 6 starts this event, including a 5th, 6th, 7th, 11th, 25th, and 32nd, which is kind of crazy for a golfer who regularly contends on the tour.
Yeah.
That's, if that happens once or twice, like, oh, he just got lucky or something like that. Well, no, when it happens the last 6 times he's played here, there's a reason for that. And they're giving us plus 250 to do something that he's done his last 6 times he's been here. Now, sure, he hasn't been in the greatest form coming in, but I got news for you. He hasn't been in the greatest form coming in each of the last 6 years either. So plus 250 on a number that this should be about plus 135, plus 145 is where I make it. Got to play it all day long. That's why I have so many top 40s this week. Normally I wouldn't, but I have so many guys that are literally off between 50 to 100 cents of value. I got to take as many of those as I can. And at the end of the day, we're going to lose some of those, but we're going to win a bunch. And when they're at plus 250, that's how you're making some profit here. Yeah,
Garnett, one of the better in terms of accuracy drivers of the ball in the field. He was like a top 5-ish course fit for me this week as well. He hit 9% more fairways than average last year, and in his 3 events this year, he hit 17% more fairways than average so far this season, and that's been really good for him. I have one more as well in the same exact range, plus 135 on Kevin Streelman. T40 in 17 of 29 events last season was a really good run in terms of ball striking for Kevin Streelman. Also, another guy that just fits the course, right? He hits it straight off the tee, not the longest hitter, but plus 10% so far this season in accuracy, 7% boost last season in hitting fairways. Made his last 3 cuts. He only has 1 top 40 in there. Short game hasn't been so great for him long term. But with the ball striking that Streelman has shown, he's been good in these like early season events. He's contended to win a lot of these early season events. And like I said, just looking at it alone, he played 29 events last year and finished top 40 in 17 of them. So I'd like Streelman here at dog money at a good course fit to get inside the top 40 here.
All right. You can find all the rest of our millions of bets on the bet sheet there at EliteSportsBetting.com. Anything else you want to say, Frank?
Yeah, just real quick. Well, first of all, you can follow us Elite Betting on Twitch, Elite Sports Network on YouTube. A little bit easier now that the Twitter, Periscope debacle has happened. A little bit easier to watch and comment and things over there. The only thing I want to mention is a lot of these guys that we match on this week, this doesn't always happen, like Reavie, Dahmen, Poulter. There is some opportunity there with some crossover bets. Typically, when we line up, good things tend to happen. So just pay attention, especially to those bets, because I would doubt that most folks are able to play all 57,000 of our bets that we're going to have collectively this week. So if you really want to emphasize certain ones, those are the ones to look for.
Yep, definitely. And with that being said, we will see you guys next week.